The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, sealed with the pompous red wax of the Whitmore family crest. Sarah May clutched it with trembling fingers as her stepfather's voice boomed across their Charleston mansion's marble foyer. Pack your things. Girl, you're being sent to marry some dirt farmer in Georgia. Maybe hard labor will teach you some discipline. Sarah May's crime? She'd grown plump on Cook's cornbread, and her stepmother's constant criticism had driven her to find comfort in second helpings. At 19, she was considered unmarriageable by Charleston's high society to heavy, too outspoken, and far too fond of reading books instead of practicing needlepoint. This Thomas Whitfield fellow owes our family money, her stepfather continued, not bothering to look up from his morning paper. He's agreed to take you off our hands in exchange for forgiving his debt. You'll leave on Friday's stagecoach. Sarah May's mother had died when she was 12, leaving her at the mercy of a stepfather who saw her as nothing but an expensive burden. Her stepmother, a rail-thin woman with a perpetual sneer, had made it clear that Sarah May's presence was an embarrassment to their social standing. Good riddance, her stepmother sniffed. Maybe farm life will work some of that fat off you. 3 days later, Sarah May found herself bouncing along a dusty Georgia road in a rickety stagecoach, her few belongings crammed into a single trunk, the other passengers a traveling salesman, and an elderly preacher kept shooting her pitying glances. She held her head high, determined not to give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. When the coach finally stopped at a small crossroads marked by nothing but a general store and a blacksmith's shop, Sarah May felt her heart sink. This was at the middle of nowhere, where she'd been exiled to live out her days with some desperate farmer who couldn't find a wife any other way. Thomas Whitfield's place? The driver called out. That'd be about 2 miles down that dirt road. The storekeeper replied, emerging from his shop. Just follow the oak-lined lane. Can't miss it. Sarah May climbed down from the coach, her legs shaky after 2 days of travel. A young man approached, hat in hand, his clothes simple but clean. Miss Sarah May, I'm James. Mr. Whitfield's. Well, I work for him. He sent me to fetch you. The wagon James drove was sturdy, but unremarkable, pulled by 2 healthy-looking horses as they bumped along the dirt road. Sarah May tried to prepare herself for whatever hovel she'd be expected to call home. She imagined a leaky cabin, maybe a few chickens scratching in the yard, and a gruff, unwashed man who'd expect her to cook and clean while he worked a few measly acres of cotton. But as they turned down the oak-lined lane James had mentioned, Sarah May's expectations began to shift. The oaks were massive, ancient things that formed a perfect canopy over a well-maintained drive. Through the trees, she glimpsed vast fields stretching to the horizon, heavy with cotton plants in perfect rows. How much land does Mr. Whitfield farm? She asked James. Considerable, miss, considerable. The house, when it finally came into view, nearly took Sarah May's breath away. It wasn't the mansion she'd grown up in, but it was no farmer's cabin either. 2 stories of white-painted wood with broad porches and tall windows, surrounded by well-tended gardens. Outbuildings dotted the landscape. Stables, a carriage house, what looked like quarters for workers. A man emerged from the house as their wagon approached. Thomas Whitfield was perhaps 35, tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-weathered hands but kind eyes. His clothes were simple work shirt and trousers but well-made. He helped Sarah May down from the wagon with gentle courtesy. Miss Sarah May, welcome. I hope your journey wasn't too difficult. She studied his face, searching for signs of disappointment at her appearance. She'd heard the whispered comments her whole life, too heavy, too plain, too much trouble. But Thomas Whitfield simply smiled and offered her his arm. Let me show you round. I imagine you'd like to freshen up after your travels. The house was spacious and comfortable, furnished simply but well. A housekeeper, a cheerful black woman named Ruth, showed Sarah May to a sunny bedroom on the 2nd floor. Mr. Thomas, he's been looking forward to your arrival, Ruth said as she helped Sarah May unpack. Been planning and preparing for weeks. Had me air out this room special. Picked flowers for the vase there. He's a good man, Miss Sarah May. None better in all of Georgia. Asterisk over dinner that evening, Sarah May waited for the other shoe to drop. When would Thomas Whitfield reveal himself to be like all the other men in her life, critical, dismissive, eager to make her feel small? Asterisk instead, he asked about her journey, her interests, whether she'd been comfortable in Charleston. When she mentioned her love of reading, his face lit up. Asterisk I've got quite a library upstairs. Nothing fancy, but plenty of books, poetry, novels, some history. You're welcome to any of them. Asterisk you read poetry. Sarah May couldn't hide her surprise. Asterisk Thomas chuckled. I know, shocking for a dirt farmer. But I went to University of Georgia, studied agriculture and literature before I came back to take over the family land. Asterisk after dinner, he showed her the library, a cozy room lined floor to ceiling with well-worn books. Sarah May ran her fingers along the spines, recognizing many titles she'd loved. Asterisk my stepfather said you owed his family money. She said quietly, that's why you agreed to this arrangement. Asterisk Thomas was quiet for a long moment. That's not entirely accurate. Your stepfather approached me through a mutual friend. Said he had a daughter who needed a good home. He mentioned the debt. Yes, but that wasn't why I agreed. Asterisk then why? Asterisk he turned to face her fully. Because I've been alone on this land for 5 years since my parents died. Because I wanted someone who'd appreciate what we've built here. Someone with sense and kindness. Your friend Mrs. Henderson from your church, she spoke very highly of you, said you were intelligent and compassionate, just underappreciated by your family. Asterisk Sarah May felt tears prick her eyes. Mrs. Henderson, her mother's old friend. The only person in Charleston who'd ever shown her genuine kindness. Asterisk she said you were being wasted in that house, that you deserved better than the way they treated you. Asterisk over the following days, Sarah May began to understand just how much better. Thomas owned not hundreds, but thousands of acres, cotton fields, pastureland, orchards, and timber. He employed dozens of workers, both free and enslaved, and his crops supplied markets as far away as New York. He was, she realized, one of the wealthiest men in Georgia. Asterisk why do you let people think you're just a poor farmer? She asked one evening as they walked through his peach orchard. Asterisk Thomas shrugged. Keeps away the gold diggers and social climbers. Lets me know who's interested in me versus my money. Besides, I am a farmer, just a successful one. Asterisk as weeks passed, Sarah May discovered that Thomas valued her mind as much as her companionship. He asked her opinion on crop rotation, listened to her ideas about improving working conditions, and encouraged her to keep books for the household accounts. He never once commented on her weight except to ensure Ruth was cooking foods she enjoyed. Asterisk in Charleston, they said I'd eaten myself out of marriage prospects. She confided one day as they sat on the front porch, watching the sunset paint the cotton fields gold. Asterisk then Charleston's full of fools. Thomas replied simply, you're exactly as you should be, Sarah May. Asterisk the wedding was small, held in the parlor with just Ruth, James, and the local preacher in attendance. Sarah May wore her mother's dress, altered to fit, and carried wild flowers from Thomas's fields. Asterisk as they exchanged vows, Sarah May thought about her stepfather's letter, still unopened on her dressing table. She'd written him once, a brief note saying she'd arrived safely. She hadn't mentioned the size of the house, the extent of Thomas's holdings, or the fact that her punishment had turned into the greatest blessing of her life. Asterisk let him keep thinking she'd been banished to poverty and hardship. Let Charleston society whisper about poor Sarah May, exiled to some dirt farm in Georgia. She'd found something better than their approval. She'd found a man who saw her worth, who valued her heart and mind, who'd given her a home where she could finally bloom. Asterisk standing on her front porch months later, watching Thomas direct the cotton harvest across fields that stretched to the horizon. Sarah May smiled. They'd sent her away as punishment, never dreaming they'd given her exactly what she'd always needed, a place where she was not just accepted, but truly cherished. Asterisk sometimes the best revenge was simply living well.